Hello and welcome to the Low-Code Campfire. This is episode number 220 for Friday, November 14, 2025. Today's topic is, among other things, is a little alphabet soup, CSS, UI, ASAP. So that's a submitted question. We'll get into that in a minute. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, and this is an event that we do week by week where we get together and talk about our challenges and techniques and experiences and help each other along in our plant and app journey. So we do encourage you to attend, to bring something to show, be ready to help with ideas and suggestions, but know this, everything is it's open to everybody, all skill levels from beginner to expert. We welcome you all. We record all of these and put them on YouTube, on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantandapp. So remember to sign up for that. We run this agenda week by week where we stop and say hello because we're a friendly group. And then we go around the campfire. We always do anything first call, whatever you want to talk about, and anything submitted. And then I've got a few other things that I pull together from around the community. We have contributions to our community campfire website, uh, our community portal, anything feature request, any dark corners of the product sometimes we discuss. But after an hour or so, we go into our afterglow segment. That's where we turn off the recording, raise a virtual adult beverage, and begin to start our weekend. So do engage with us, jump in, show and tell, or submit a topic in advance. You can do that by sending an email to support@plantandapp.com. Just a important programming note, we will have a special guest host 1 week from today. I will be out, but uh, Patrick Anderson has agreed to fill in for me. So I'll be away. You get to talk about me in any way that you like. In any case, beyond that, there won't be a campfire gathering on November the 28th. That's the day after Thanksgiving, and we can't have progress and work being done on Black Friday. But it will resume, Campfire will resume on December 5th, the next Friday. With that, hello, one and all.
Good morning. Hi.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
A little quiet, but we can hear you.
Exactly.
I'll try a different mic position.
That's better.
There you go. All right. As promised, we start out with first call. Did either of you bring anything that you want to talk about today?
I did not.
Okay.
No, I didn't either.
Well, I have things that I always try and prepare a little something, and so let's just jump right into those. Um, one of our uh, one of our users was trying to design a form, and in the form you have to choose between labels on top or the position of the label. So he's picked the on top layout, and yet wants a different layout for certain fields that might make it look better and to be side by side in a certain segment. And I've never tried this, trying to come up with a hybrid mix. I'm sorry, there's a couple of different ways that this can be approached, and but I haven't had this particular need, so I thought I would just attack it here a little bit, see what we could learn, and see if any of you have had to do something similar. So, my two answers out of the bag would be to try to use to do something with CSS, and worst case to use the manual form layout to achieve what you might want to achieve. Do any of you have to try and do something similar?
Recently, I did a whole bunch of tweaking of the inside uh, the floating label option because I needed to work a little bit differently. And it was just really a lot of brute force CSS overriding styles that I did.
Hmm. I've got this was the where the question was and a little bit about what he tried, but I just set up a form and haven't tried to do anything with it at all, but I thought I would do it interactively. And I thought it might be useful to look at techniques too that um, when you're trying to do CSS, well, how do you determine what CSS to do, and then uh, how to what the design process you use, right? So um, I'm going to open up the inspect console here and dock it on the bottom so that we can kind of interact with this a little bit. But um, what I found is that doing these kinds of things where you can kind of mock up the changes that you want to do are useful because you can take the what you've learned and immediately apply it to the CSS of the form, and start to just kind of incrementally change it. And it's interactive. That's what I like about it. So um, with this design, before I go picking fields, with this design, this kind of hopefully simulates what he's trying to accomplish. He's got field labels on the top, and then we've got these yes, no fields here with long labels and short content. And so my assumption is he wants this to appear over to the left. Um, but really approaching this more from technique rather than trying to achieve his exact design. So using this selector tool, I'm going to pick the label. And again, I haven't tried this at all, but maybe we could figure it out. When you pick something, you get the element style here in the CSS section. And if you start applying CSS, you start to get an impact. So visually, we can see we're adding CSS to the right thing already here. And then the just at a guess, and if anybody has a better suggestion, I'd love to hear it. But I think margin left will probably shift where this label is going to appear. And so, yeah, it shifted it to the right here. And negative values are possible too. So once you have this here in your, and there's probably, again, lots and lots of ways to style this, but once it's here interactively, using the down arrow on this number is giving us access to change the number one at a time. And so we've got it shifted over. Margin top, if we start adding.
You got a little typo there in your.
Oh, you mean Martin is not going to do any? That's shifting everything, so
Yeah.
that's not going to be a win. Um,
I was thinking that approach that I might take, I don't know, but maybe have another form that you can look at that has the left align fields and try looking at the at the classes that are applied there and seeing what needs to change. I wish there was a way that you could and maybe there is, not thinking all the way through, but just say, um, for this field, use this class instead. I guess with JavaScript, you could replace the class. That might be a way to go to. Actually, I think I've done that before. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that's something I've used in the past. Is I've taken specific fields and done a remove class and apply class based on for a very similar purpose to this.
so look at what I just stumbled into. I used position absolute on this, and
Yeah.
uh, it came up. So yeah, that's just luck there because not a CSX expert. So just given this, kind of close the loop, and then I want to explore what you said, Patrick, because I think it'd be useful. I'm going to copy these two things that got the position that I wanted. And in our fields, do you want to take a vacation? In the UI settings, the styles of the label, I'm going to paste both of those things there. So it's going to move it to the left and make it position absolute. And so now when we refresh the page, those styles will apply. Let's see if they go where we think they're going to go. And they did. We probably still need to work with that. It's not really aligned very well, but we can probably try to drop that down a little bit. So let's try now. Yeah, margin top is now doing what we hoped it would do. So maybe an 8-pixel margin top. And so now I'm going to apply that back to the same UI. And it's going to take this whole thing and apply it to the next one. With luck, it will do that same for that. So yeah, we got a little overlap problem there, but we got very, very close in a short amount of time. This is part of the challenge, of course, too, is that, we're working on a full screen. So what does this look like if we start to narrow down? And that one seems to stand up pretty well. When we get to a phone format, it broke completely, or rather pushed off the side. So depending on your use case, if you know that people are going to be on a phone, this wouldn't be a good answer. But otherwise, pretty good. Yeah,
I
so
noticed
let's.
you only put the style into the label. Is that what I saw you where you pasted it?
Correct. Where did I do that? UI settings. Yes, so I was trying to, I had started my action by doing the inspect on the label itself. So that's why whatever I came up with would go to the label. If I was trying to do something with the control, I would have picked the control to start our styling. And yeah, does that make sense?
It does. I was just surprised that the absolute then affected the text box when you put that in, when you stumbled across it.
Right. So this is just a matter of luck, I suppose, that once we take that on top style out, uh, excuse me, once we make that position, what did I do? Absolute. I assume that's that it closes up that space. See, that's just the default behavior of what's all the other CSS that's there. So yeah, that was. Uh, and your mileage may vary, of course, on a different um, theme, but that the position of the label is impacting the position of the control itself. Um, so let's. You had mentioned maybe doing seeing what happens with a left label, a left align. So maybe we'll do a different form to explore that. There is another. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is another solution that we could do with with the connected forms scenario, right? If we defined
Mhm.
the form as a if we define this one to go to the, have the labels to the left and put our drop down. So now we have this side-by-side layout. Maybe doesn't really, let's work on alignment here a little bit. I'm going to go to my form, my second form, and manage it. Keep these in order here so I can keep it straight, but in the layout, we'll do something like this, which should end up with the labels lining up. Close. Anyway, that you could add your button as a submit button and add a connected form, which would be the original form, and its name is going to be, I'm going to call it F1, Form 1. I don't really like the UI for that. We have an expression button that's popping up there that I need to report. Anyway, that overlaps a little bit. So now all the forms, all the fields on the first form would be available as F1 colon whatever, as well as the fields on this form. So now you have kind of the best of both worlds without a lot of work. We'll just demonstrate that that works with the debug message here. So now we have a lot of stuff going on here, hard to read. Let's take a look at it in another editor. But all the F1 fields are available. So F1 first name, F1 last name, do you want to take a vacation, do you have the money, as well as the other fields in this form. So that's an interesting way to go as well. So exploring left labels. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. So you were, Patrick, your idea was what? Look at the classes that are being applied to this.
Yeah, and perhaps yeah, do a like dot label align left that class or label line or dot label line right, I guess, because you have them right aligned. So something like that. Actually, no, you have a left align, don't you?
Which is, yeah.
Yeah.
So we got, okay. So let's go that direction. We have my original here, and we'll do one more copy of this. And what else we can will not apply any styles to this one. So now we're going to try other styling against it. Yeah, let's give us our similar layout here. So we're back to the scenario where the label's on top. We can see on this one, whoops, wrong one, that this gets a lot of labels that are a lot of CSS that's associated with. So what do you think? Maybe take these classes and apply them?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, something like that. I'm not sure. There's probably other elements we need to look at too. So it might be a little bit complicated, but also the fact that you may need to. We'll go ahead and try this, and but you may also need to remove the the class that's doing the because you have some conflicting
Right, exactly.
classes. So that's why I was thinking it might be a deal where you could do JavaScript that basically on load. It's not ideal, but on load you could replace classes on a specific field.
Right. Neat. So for my money, I think I would go with the connected form scenario, just to you could alternate between a top layout and a side layout, and then bring it all together in the bottom form, um, or whichever form, wherever you need the button, you can bring it together there. And so that's a possible answer. And then um, I want to mention that the whole connected form thing, we see that it says connected forms obsolete. Just for clarity on that one, there are no plans to remove this from action form, but it's obsolete from the standpoint that it's not going to be this. It's probably not going to find its way into the next major version of Forms 2.0. So Forms 2.0 is not a replacement product, but rather an additional thing that will be coming. You'll see a preview of that in our next version of Plant and App. But as you migrate to that, the connected forms isn't going to be something that's brought in, because we allow a lot more flexibility in the layout. That's kind of the whole goal of our new forms product, to allow better layout options. And so it would solve exactly this kind of problem. All right. So certainly some ideas, and so hopefully we'll get this one to Mason so that he can look and see, choose from options presented, and how much which direction he wants to go with that. So good one. It's not too late for first call if anybody who has come to the call later has something you want to talk about. Otherwise, I'm going to jump to another one. All right, so here's a new challenge, new to me. Got a client that it wants a form and a listing, and he really wants the listing inside the form at a specific place inside of his form. And so he's using an embedded listing and putting that turning on the embed feature, and then embedding that into a static text field so that he has the the listing inside the form. So has anybody done that? And anybody have any tips or insights on that?
I haven't, but I can say that I believe that in order for the embed to work, the form actually has to be on a different page. And it says there that they're doing it on the same page. Is that...
He did. That is what he said.
Mhm.
And I um, uh, I would be concerned about that too, that when the form is on the same page, it's trying to initialize because it's there
Mhm.
versus being embed. So I would.
We do have there's a JavaScript also, isn't there? That maybe, I don't know, I'm not really sure, but maybe it doesn't really let you tell where it's going to be, though. It just shows or hides it. So I guess that's not going to do. Yeah, show or hide.
I
So
did this with embedded forms itself, and I'm going to go look at some code.
So one of the things that I pointed out, well, I'm sorry, there's taking a look at a listing here just to look at the feature we're talking about. So under settings, there is in advanced, there's the ability to turn on embedding, and it gives you a script that this can then be used to embed this form wherever. And yeah, the description of this says you can use it to embed the form in other websites or other pages. Um, doesn't doesn't specifically say you can or cannot do it to the same page, but I would be concerned about it. And then it comes with this common issues where you've got mixed active content and X-frame options that just the way that a script brings this listing in, that there's some technical things that sometimes get in the way. And this user was getting some when an embedded form doesn't load, it shows up with a blue bar, a little error message that said it couldn't load, and you click the button to open it in another way or on another page. So it's and he was encountering that, and so I don't know what thing he encountered that was triggering that. It worked most of the time, but not sometimes. And so it's just the whole idea of embedding opens up some potential issues. If it were me, um, and now we're getting, um, I see a comment about having that Mark's done embedding before, and maybe there's a web config entry that's usually required, which I do believe is talked about in this Learn More section. Um, but again, from my perspective, I try to think about ways to do it that isn't um, isn't stretching the product or JavaScript reliant, things like that. So um, it's possible that the same connected forms thing that we just encountered, we were talking about a few minutes ago, could solve this. In his particular design, he had a form on top and then a listing underneath the form, and then underneath the listing was a button to do the thing that he wanted. You know, that he wanted people to have to scroll past the listing to click the button. And so that could be done by a form and a listing, followed by another form that's connected to the first form. You could still get that layout without um, without having to embed. Um, but I think the suggestion about um, putting it on another page is a good one. Um, oh, Mark has another great idea using JavaScript to move a listing into a static text. So you've got a listing on the page, and then you just use CSS to get it, or JavaScript to move it around to
mhm.
where you want it to be. So that's another interesting technique that wouldn't involve embedding. and everything that comes with that. It's just on the page. And then for this user, this might actually be solved, but so it might work on the. This is a story ongoing, so he thinks maybe it was solved by because he had other issues going on, and the other issues were that there were JavaScript errors on the page, which I think will account for why it worked sometime and it didn't work sometime. The JavaScript errors were interfering with that embedded thing showing up. So it may work on the same on embedding from the same page onto the same page, but you do have to open up the console and make sure you don't have any JavaScript errors going on. Which leads me to one that Patrick you'll recognize. The JavaScript error in question was that the phone field in the most current version of 127 uh, throws a JavaScript error if you provide an initial value to it. If the initial value field if it's trying to populate it with something, it will throw an error, and then that shows up with once there's JavaScript errors on the page, that can impact your page in any number of ways. Mark is continuing with comments. I just remembered there's a JavaScript function in the list of JavaScript functions that displays a module anywhere on another page, and I don't recall having tried to use that one either, so that's another option.
The DNNSF one?
So he says. Let's so probably worth let's try. In Campfire, there is this spreadsheet of functions, and so probably worth anyone who's following along at home knowing where these are. So campfire.plantapp.com, looking for JavaScript, and there's the JavaScript API, all the functions that are available. And the list is here. And now the argument's happening behind the scenes that maybe it's a my token, and there is a my token that does that. Anyway, here's the list of functions for displaying and working with different, and it's these current the one in this current column. All these JavaScript functions can be used to interact with open and close and things like that. In the spirit of looking at let's go ahead and look at the tokens. There is a function that displays the content of a module, and I'm not sure that I've had good success with that, but anybody remember what that might be? Module output, perhaps. Yeah, renders a given module and embeds it where it appears. So potentially taking that. I've not had a really
I haven't used that.
I don't. You might be able to get an HTML module. I doubt that. I mean, I suppose we could try it, but I'm not sure it could be used for a grid. But good thing to try. Okay, we're 7 levels deep here. Let me close some things out. Matter of fact, I'm going to close everything out. So yeah, that's some ideas about how to approach that, and I think they're good ones. So hopefully that'll help him along. I'll pass those too. Let's see what else we have.
Just real quick, Dale, I'll go back to what you were saying about the phone field. I just wanted to toss out there that the workaround that I found for that was just in case anybody else sees the problem, and this is in a very late version of 127, I think, but the problem that my fix was that I put in a hidden field that receives the value, the phone number value at input, and then I bound the phone field. I did a bind to that hidden field, and that loaded the value without an error. So that was my workaround.
So let's go ahead and illustrate the problem. If you have a phone field with an initial value, so here I'm trying to put in a generic 214 phone number into the field, and it did put it there. But notice I've got a checkbox list up here, and it's not appearing. The checkbox list is just configured as a default checkbox list. So the JavaScript error, let's look at the JavaScript error. When this form initialized, there was this range error, maximum call stack size exceeded. So this error ended up stemming from and just we found it by trial and error, but stemming from providing an initial value. So if I go to my form and look at the phone field and remove this value and refresh, of course the phone field won't initialize anymore, but the checkbox list appears. So that, and the JavaScript errors are gone. So part of the lesson here is when you're seeing odd things, why is my form doing what it's doing, is to look at this at the console and seeing if there's JavaScript errors. It could be JavaScript that you introduced, it could be JavaScript that we did, something that's in your theme, anything, but JavaScript errors are going to cause impact on your form. So in this case, it was us, and it has to do with initializing a value. And once it happens, it messes up the form. The form doesn't act the way it should. And of course, the phone field looks exactly like it's supposed to, so it's hard to see just from this why. I mean, you're chasing why did my checkbox list go away, but it's really was broken by the phone field. Anyway, so your workaround was pushing the value of the phone into this after the form loads.
That's right. Basically, that's what I did with a bind.
And it's okay. So field was in a the form was in field was in a hidden form, and you just bound it to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just added a hidden field and
So,
loaded my initial value into the hidden field, and then bound the value of the phone field to the hidden field, and it worked.
so this is hidden phone. I just want to illustrate, since that sounds so very simple. So we're not initializing it, but we are binding it to hidden phone like that. Interesting. Well, I like it because it's low code and not too hard to. So, but interestingly, it didn't format it.
Hmm. I haven't experienced that. That wasn't happening for me. I wonder what's different. I need to go back and check again and make sure I wasn't getting invalid country code.
And we're seeing some other error from the phone field. So, but at least our checkbox list is coming back. But this certainly makes me worry a little bit. I think, I also established that you can set it by way of a context action, like create update tokens and push it in this way, and that would work. So let's try that. So we're not gonna
beat me to it.
Yeah.
uh-huh. So we are not going to do it here anymore. We'll leave the hidden field for the moment, but if it doesn't happen as part of the form initialization, checkbox renders, the phone renders, and we can push it. But even still, we're seeing the same errors are happening after the fact. We have problems that we need to fix this phone field. When I pointed this particular one of I have another client that has this, well, I'm sorry, the same issue that we were talking about with the grid inside the form. Phone was blowing him up. And when I pointed that out, he used a text box with the format of formatted for the phone number, and was quite happy with that. It got rid of the errors and let him move on. But we obviously need to fix the phone field. All right. So a couple of documentation things that have happened. I mentioned these quickly last week because we had an interesting discussion and then we ran out of time. So I got to hit these quickly. I'll mention them again today. So workflows, I added what are they and why you should use it kind of thing. So an introductory topic to workflows and walking through a simple workflow that adds up two numbers. So you give it a name and a couple of inputs and a workflow that does the work, and outputting them and getting the results of the action. So just kind of workflows from a very high level. Another one was, and worth mentioning again, a little addition to our Run SQL query action. In our newest versions, the SQL queries are now wrapped in a transaction, which we deemed as a better. The old setup was that SQL queries were just submitted without being wrapped in a transaction. So the result of this is several things, but we did it to improve. We had clients that were heavy SQL users and were getting deadlocks, and realizing that we could do things better, we improved to eliminate the deadlocks. The end result was that the Run SQL query is now in a transaction, so that just means that it's all or none. So if you happen to be relying on, let's say if you're doing an update and a delete within one SQL query, and the update failed, the delete would still happen. Excuse me, if the update happened and the delete failed, the update would remain under the new version. The transaction would roll it back, and so it would be like it didn't happen at all. So possible breaking change if you're counting on a non-transactioned behavior, non-rollback behavior, you're impacted. But we consider that to be rare, and that this is a much better scenario. But Ben has a question.
Yeah, I was just curious because you're saying that this could possibly be a breaking change, especially if, let's say, someone wrote some sort of a SQL script where if one thing didn't work, they still expected other things to work. Would it be possible? I mean, I know you guys have already implemented this, but to instead of forcing the transaction, offering us the option to encapsulate in a transaction, maybe even leaving it as the default setting when we create this, but that we can uncheck it and say this particular script we don't want encapsulated in a transaction.
So that exact behavior, that just what you just described is exactly where we're going. We have a product change put into the mix that that would add that checkbox that would allow choosing between whether or not you want a transaction. And aside from the case that you just mentioned, there's also we have some users that are trying to that use SQL Server level commands to, I don't know, back up a database or do, I don't remember exactly what it was, but things that are not commonly done within a Run SQL, but they don't operate within a transaction. So we want to give back the ability to do that, and yet the common use case is the one that we've tuned for. We didn't. This is kind of one of those unintended impact things. We were faced with a situation where where we had deadlocks on and for a very large customer, and we worked to stamp out the deadlocks, which had an unintended impact that we had that these turned into transactions. So it wasn't that we were trying to force everybody into transactions, but we decided that it is the better, safer, most common use case, and we don't anticipate a lot of people will be broken by this, but we want to make you aware of it.
We've experienced it some at USPA as well, but not to the degree of the other large customer that you're talking about.
The deadlocks?
Yeah, the deadlocks. We've experienced it some, but not to the degree.
Hopefully this will help you take care of that as well.
Yeah.
The Low-Code Cafe, the last one that I did, talked a lot about I walked through all of the listing control settings. So I've updated the documentation with all of the different settings that are available in, the general settings of listings. And this topic was here before, but it's just been rewritten and improved, and the things that were not present in it got added in. So lots and lots of things. And this then kind of goes along with the I think somewhere in here hopefully we have a link to the video. Yeah. So a link to the cafe episode where we did this. So a little 2-for-1 there. So updates on that. There was a really good question, a couple of good questions in the community forum this week. One of them was about, let's see if I can get this to open. There it is. About trying to put something in a form from local storage. And let's see if we can get to that one. So my understanding of this question is that if you look in your browser and there's the ability to put content into local storage, and then that's other than cookies. I mean, cookies is down here, but you can store content of any variety with JavaScript into the local storage of the browser. So the question, as I interpret it, is, well, okay, now that I have information in there, how do I get it back out into a form or use it another way? And yeah, my answer has to do with really any kind of you're trying to say I'm going to run some JavaScript. I know how to get if you know how to get to this information, whatever it is in local storage, and you have it in a JavaScript variable, you can use this kind of code here, the Angular code, to push it into a form field. And so that was it really doesn't matter where you're storing it, but I'm not going to cover how to get it into and out of local storage, but here's how you can push it into a form. I found, and we must have beat this one up on a different day because there was a Campfire contribution about changing a form token, and Patrick made an attempt and Mark made an attempt, and we messed with it quite a bit. So this same set of code where you point to wherever your form is by form ID number, and then assign, in this case, we have a TB1 field that we're assigning, and we're getting using a token to initialize it and applying it. So this this JavaScript that we have here does do that kind of work, just pushing it onto the form. So there is an example of it out there. I have another example in my test suite that does it on more than just a text box, and so and also kind of illustrates some issues with it as well. But so this button here is setting both text boxes and drop down with autocomplete and drop downs, and shows the JavaScript to accomplish that, which I could publish that as well. It's not, this is, but in any case, in this point, I'll just show it. So there's the same thing where we're doing form fields text box value as we're applying it. There's also applying it to a drop down with autocomplete, or a drop down that you choose the value and apply it, and that works as well. So there wasn't anyone on this group that was asking that question, so anybody have any comments about
the local storage thing? I can say that I do that. I definitely have used that function, setting a value into local storage and then retrieving it. So it does work.
Are you retrieving it into a form?
Actually, you know, it's funny. I was just looking to see. I can't remember. I remember there was some complications, but I can't remember what I did. And I was just seeing if I could figure out one of those things.
The same logic that we've been doing. I've got this on a listing as well. So you'll see, for example, that I'm pushing the user ID to this text box, as well as setting the drop downs. And so
What's the business case for doing that into a local storage over like a cookie? What do you gain, or is it persist better? What's the advantage of doing that?
It does persist. Yep, that's correct.
I think, well, so this would be a great question to research with our interns, but one of my answers would be, I think that cookies are meant for very small bits of information, and they travel automatically with a form submission. So when you click the button, they're already included. And I think local storage, you decide when to interact with it. So it could be you could set something in the browser's local storage that's going to stay with them, but it's not on every transaction back and forth. You get to decide when you ask for it and retrieve it. Also, I think local storage is meant for larger amounts of data. So cookies are intended to be small, but let's see how close I came here.
Ah, see what I did. You know what the problem is, and please, this I don't. Maybe we've discussed this on this call before, and I know why I had to do. I do see how I'm getting it into a field, but it's not. I think maybe we discussed this previously, but on the form initialization, the action for running a JavaScript and continuing execution is not there. You can't run a JavaScript and continue execution. You can only run JavaScript and stop execution in the form initialization actions. And there must be some logical reason why the developers have restricted it from there, but there's many occasions when I thought it would be really useful if I could run JavaScript and continue execution. So what I ended up doing was I didn't need to know the local storage value until somebody clicked a button. So what I did is I put the JavaScript to fill the hidden field in the on change click of the button, and then because that on change click runs before your actions, the value was in the field, and then I could just use the field token in my actions. So that's what I did. That's how I handled it. But if I was able to run JavaScript and continue execution on form initialization, then I would have been able to get it into the form at initialization.
While we're there, I'll mention that I've got all these other buttons on here, and I think there's limitations on what you can do. So, for example, this same code that I did at JavaScript and stop that populated the fields it's the same code here that's followed up with an Ajax, and the Ajax ends up overwriting the values that I just pushed into the field, resulting in nothing happening. So I'll show this code in a second, but I've got another one that's JavaScript with a delay. And so if you need to do it with a button that does an Ajax, there is a solution for that. And I'll show the code. So we have with delay and Ajax. So I'm doing execute JavaScript code and continue, and then eventually I'm going to bump into an Ajax down here. But I'm using a set timeout with a 1/10 of a second delay that so all of my code executes after a 1/10 of a second, so it's a timing issue. So I'll just point out if you're having troubles getting this to happen, it might be a timing issue. Okay. So back to Jim's question, comparison storage this is an answer. So your local storage can have megabytes worth of storage, where cookies is limited to 4K, and exploration, local storage sticks around until it's explicitly removed. Although, of course, the user is in control of that too, but cookies are defined by you set an age or a time depending on the kind of cookies. So yeah, so it's developer driven versus automatic clearing, or yeah. So different use cases. They're both accessible to JavaScript, not accessible to the server, and see these are sent automatically with requests. So you get different capabilities. Different security scenarios too. Does that help, Jim?
Yeah, no, it does. Many years ago in a language far away, I did something like that for populating lookup fields for drop downs and things. And I never tried doing it in a web app.
Mm-hmm. Most recently, I've been thinking about this from the standpoint of reducing, uh, really for a handheld mobile app, right? If it has to do with mapping, but the idea that I want to designate 100 different addresses for somebody using my mobile app to visit, that by putting those into local storage, when they start their work, they're no longer we're no longer transferring that information with every hit. If I without using it, basically what I was doing is sending the map and sending all the pinpoints with every transaction. And so the idea of using local storage to hold those and to populate my map from local storage would save a lot of back and forth with the server. So that's my kind of use case for it. I haven't accomplished it yet, but that's the idea.
Well, and I have a similar use case that I'm working on where people are going to be more in the field with it and not always have good connectivity.
Exactly.
And I want to be able to store the results of a transaction, and then when they get connectivity, upload them. So
Exactly. So if you build your app to gather all its information while it's connected, put it in local storage, um, and the interactions with it get stored again in local storage, then you can upload it up when you have connectivity. It might be immediately, it might be when you return to an area. So, yep. All right. I am going to jump on. We've done our hour a little bit more, so I am going to jump to the end here. I want to thank you all for sharing with us today. We will do this again in a week, but it's going to be Patrick Anderson leading the discussion, and so I'll be back the week after Thanksgiving. Thanks for spending your time with us, and hang around if you can for Afterglow.